Why are you driving me crazy? Who are you? Have you ever sat there and just wondered what planet your partner was on? Where did they get their high-flying ideas about future innovations, plans and opinions from? Or do you ever wonder why your partner is so mundane, repetitive, only thinking about the here and now and concentrating on minor details? After all, who cares about the present and the past and what's happening today? It's the future that matters. Given that debate, the one that revolves around yesterday, today and tomorrow, what does happen when you and your partner can't see eye to eye on your outlook, or much of anything for that matter? Your future plans, where to go on holiday, the day-to-day tasks, and the routines that life brings. How stressful is it when you simply cannot see or understand their side of a story or argument, and you stop listening? When you can no longer hear what the other has to say, what happens when you go so far as to disrespect or ignore your partner's opinions or ideas, either in your head or verbally, thinking, where did those thoughts come from? To our frustration and stress, we often unwittingly have very different views of the world than our partners. This can cause the other person to feel unheard, unhappy, and even unwanted. If you're feeling like this in your relationships, it's time to look for help. 65% of divorces and relationship breakdowns are a result of lack of communication, respect for each other's ideas and feelings, and the inability to compromise. Then the R word might even sneak in. The R word being resentment. And resentment is cancer for a relationship. This is not what you want for your relationships, is it? Maintaining the highest levels of respectful, loving interaction with each other, learning tools of personality and people, will put you at the front line of relationship success and happiness and save you a wealth of emotional and financial trauma. In order to understand this rift in our communication styles, we're going to explore how you prefer to gather your information. Welcome to Personalities, Parenting and Partners. This is the podcast that connects you to the ones you care about the most. I'm Kate Mason. This episode of Personalities, Parenting and Partners will focus on the second set of the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, or the MBTI as it's known. Using personality tools will help you successfully create the best connection and relationships with everyone in your life, starting with your partner. This second set of preferences in the MBTI look at the way we take in information and how this influences our approach to our world. Do you prefer to focus on basic information that you take in, or do you prefer to interpret and add meaning? This is called sensing and intuition. Let me get a little detailed and look at this closer. I'm going to refer to the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, so stay with me because it's worth getting a little bit technical. Sensors have an S as the second letter in their type code. For example, ESFJ. As there are two I's in the MBTI profile, I for introvert and I for intuitive, the intuitives have an N as the second letter of their type code. For example, ENFJ. My preference is sensing. I love facts, details, routines, and I enjoy living in the moment, many of the things that stress intuitives. Therefore, as I begin today, I'd like to let you know that there are lots of details in this podcast. So if you're a person who likes the big picture without specifics, and you feel like you're drowning in the details, please hang in there for as long as possible. I promise you, it's worth it. This is important stuff, and I want to give you the context so you can better understand what fuels some of your thinking, or the thinking of your partner. If you can stay with me until the end, this is a great time to learn about your opposite type, because it's very likely you might be in the relationship with one. Let us keep in mind that every single person uses intuition and sensing. We just want to figure out what your first preference is. Look at it this way. We have two hands. We favour one, but still use the other. In fact, if you were unable to use your preferred hand, you could, over time, become almost as skillful using your non-preferred hand. One is more natural and more comfortable for us to use, and the other more uncomfortable, but we still use it in some form daily. So let's take a look at the impact these two different preferences can have on your views of life, your communication, and your understanding of each other. Let's begin with sensing types. Sensors focus on what is known. Sensors love talking about facts, details, and experiences. If you're with a group of sensors, they'll probably be talking about their day, their experiences, relationships, and stories from their lives. Or they might be talking about TV shows they're watching, recipes they're using, and what they're planning to do today and tomorrow. They'll notice someone's haircut or new outfit. They use their 5 senses to gather information, and they're concrete and literal in their interpretations. When planning a holiday, rather than visualising where they'll be going, the sensing types focused on the details, the dates, the flights, the taxis, the hotels. They're all about the here and now. This helps them gather the data they need to make their everyday world make sense and run smoothly. They need to see the steps to get to the big picture. Imagine a staircase. It can be as grand or as ordinary as you like. The sensing person begins their journey towards an idea or a project by climbing the stairs from the very beginning, step by step. This process takes them one step at a time to the bigger goal. As they climb, they slowly gather facts and details they need, streamlining their knowledge as they go. It's safe and steady. When they reach the top, they'll have the whole topic or idea or process covered. Sensing types often enjoy focus on the past and the present. They love old photos, past music and movies, and enjoy discussing past and present events rather than future happenings. They like doing things, for example, working on projects, building, cleaning. They don't really like to sit down and daydream. They're practical and sensible, terms that I align with very often as a sensor. For example, when my intuitive brother first brought his children around to swim in our new pool many years ago, I, the sensing one, warned them of the dangers of doing bombs around others in the pool, not diving into the water at the shallow end, and not running around the pool edge. My brother took one look at me, smirked, ran along the pool edge, and bombed his sons in the water at the shallow end. He doesn't like sensible rules and restrictions, as he's all about pushing the boundaries and creating new experiences. As his sensible sister, I just sighed, laughed, and walked inside, thinking, if they get hurt, not my problem. Of course, they never did, but this occasion did reflect our very different personalities in a situation. If I didn't know him so well, and love him, I would have found these actions very annoying. So now let's have a look at how differently intuitive types view the world. Intuitives focus on what is unknown. There is an approximately 50-50 split in the population between the other MBTI preferences. However, with sensing and intuition, approximately 70% of the population prefers sensing, versus only 30% favouring intuition. So yes, intuitives are special. They perceive their world less through their 5 senses and more through patterns and impressions. When processing information, they're far more concerned with future possibilities than being in the here and now. Many intuitives who attend my workshops say that they've always felt very different to others and struggled to fit into the conventional lifestyle and learnings of the sensing world. They frequently feel like outcasts until they find themselves, and sadly some of them never do. This awareness often occurs in adulthood, where they gain more knowledge and experience and learn to embrace their differences. When people discover they are intuitive, and not as others label them quirky, odd, flaky, dreamers, it's a huge aha moment for them. Knowledge brings with it confidence, self-worth, self-awareness, and the realization that although their view of the world is different from many others, it is exactly what it is. Different. Not right or wrong, just different. Intuitives look for meaning in things. They ask what if. They question and look for answers to problems. A friend of mine uses the saying, there are no problems in life, only solutions to be found. When life gives intuitive lemons, they often make lemonade, as they can see more solutions than the immediate reality holds. They read between the lines and are abstract thinkers. They're conceptual rather than practical or sensible, and routine bores them. When speaking, intuitives use metaphors and comparisons. An intuitive friend of mine bought a rocking chair to sit in and rock her grandchild. I was blown away. Her daughter was only 4 months pregnant. She explained to me that she visualized herself sitting in it with the infant in her arms by the window with a breeze blowing the curtains. I shook my sensing head, thinking, but not verbalizing, which is hard for me as an extrovert. What a crazy idea. She'll never use it. And she never did. When reality set in and the baby was born, she didn't have time to sit and rock. However, she could if she wanted to. Intuitives enjoy talking about novel ideas or theories. They don't need a solution to these, just the chance to explore the possibilities. Imagine the staircase again. The intuitive begins their approach to ideas, theories, visions, literally from the top of the stairs. They can see the whole idea and where it's headed. When asked for details, they can come down a few steps and start heading towards the bottom of the staircase, but usually boredom sets in. The details get too overwhelming. Who wants to be bothered with the minor parts of their amazing idea? So they stop, find another train of thought or a process that they can run wild with. They enjoy analysing situations and will sit and think and reflect, watch, read and experiment. They relish brainstorming ideas and thoughts and possibilities, and often sit in their thoughts for hours on end. My sensing husband walks with an intuitive business partner 3 times a week. Each time he comes home, he's full of new, exciting ideas and plans about the subject matters they've discussed, and he's prepared to put them into action. However, next time they walk, a plethora of more new ideas and theories are brought up without reference to any of the previous conversation. He's come to recognise that his intuitive friend is using this conversation as a springboard to share ideas, problems and solutions, but probably will never take any action on any of them unless they're extremely important to him. Paul knows his personality types, and if he didn't, he would be very frustrated with these conversations. However, he views them in a positive light. So now he picks out the most important ideas and information that he himself sees as useful, puts the details around them, and makes them happen for himself. So why do sensors and intuitives drive each other nuts? It all gets back to perception. Much of the time, the two types misunderstand each other's needs and misinterpret each other's ways of taking in information. Sensors feel that the intuitive is always seeking new ideas and fulfillment from future plans and are unable to enjoy living in the present. They find it hard to relate to the intuitive's suggestions and ideas, as they're not built on facts, rather on theories and visions. The often seemingly unrealistic intuitive dreams and ideas can feel too abstract for the sensor, who needs to see the reality of what's being discussed and the facts that can bring it to fruition. The intuitive's ideas often appear half-processed and incomplete, and this can be very frustrating for the sensing partner who sees this as unfocused and unfinished. An intuitive friend of mine told me that when buying her last house, she literally sat in the car outside and said to her husband, "This is the one. I don't need to go inside." She said that she had intuitively sensed that the house was going to be a place of happiness and peace for her and her family, and she would have just gone away and signed the necessary papers. However, her sensing husband ensured that she got out of the car, looked through the house, and made sure all the details in and outside met the specific details of what they needed before they bought it. I would have done so too. Sensing people think intuitives are unstable. They feel that the constant desire for change and new ideas is unsettling, and they question the need to change things that are currently working well, just because. Sensors feel they can't relax when all they want to do is relax in what is happening now. Why do we have to keep looking to the future? When reality is right in front of you, there's no need to question. Reality is reliable. Theory isn't. However, intuitives prefer to talk around what things mean or symbolize. They're more concerned with the overall big picture and can gloss over a lot of the sensory details. The intuitive person finds the sensing person unimaginative and lacking in creativity. Intuitives are uninterested in talking about day-to-day practical topics. They find the sensing person even more boring. Why do you need to repeat things constantly? Why not create something new? Because sensors place their trust in personal experience and facts they've accumulated, they tend to trust the tried and true technique and verifiable sources. Intuitives cannot understand why there is so much need for trivial information and find this desire for detail, lack of creative thought, constraining and uncomfortable. Let's move on, for goodness sake. My intuitive friend has told me how hard he finds conversations with his mother. When he calls her to have a chat, she basically recites every detail of her day, from getting up in the morning, showering, meals, walks, and the list goes on. He says he just puts the phone on speaker and wanders around his home doing other things. Only every now and then will he make a comment. The details bore him stupid. Luckily, she has brought him up with manners, so he keeps his thoughts of his boredom in his head and doesn't say how he really feels. Intuitives cannot believe how disinterested sensors are in change and new ideas. They feel the sensing type is not moving forward fast, if at all. Who wants to live and stay in the past or the present? They don't look to the future like we intuitives do. Because sensing types constantly put down the intuitive's innovative, creative ideas as unworkable, crazy, and not financially viable, the intuitive feels the lack of encouragement and accepting the changes that they could make to make life even better, annoying and upsetting. Today I'm talking to Sarah. Sarah is an INFP, and although we are looking at how she views the world as an intuitive, her 4-letter profile tells us a lot more than just the one preference. The combination of NF in Sarah's profile means that Sarah uses her personal values to make her intuitive decisions. Therefore, her intuitive direction is about harmony, relationships, and people. If you have the letters NT in the middle of your profile and are an intuitive thinker who uses logic to make your decisions, then you may find that you have a different intuitive thought process. Hi Sarah, welcome to Personalities, Parenting and Partners. I'm a sensing type, so I focus on facts, concrete experiences and reality, and I live in a world that suits my type preference. So let's get right into it. Can you tell us about how you felt as an intuitive growing up in a sensing world?
I think probably I was a bit of a challenge for my parents, to be honest, because my view of the world was always I'm a small part in a huge, I'm a cog in a huge machine, and everything is happening all at the same time. So my fascination as a child was what was around me. So I used to run off quite a lot. My mother actually got some reins for me to stop me running away, because I'd be, oh, look at that. It's a bit like you think dog, squirrel. I'll be like, oh, something, a butterfly, or, oh, look, there's a snail. And I get fascinated by things. I remember going on holiday once, and I love snails, and so I collected all these snails in a basket, and everyone was going, oh my gosh, slimy snails, and there's me, and I've got them all crawling up my arm and just watching them and looking at the shells and all that kind of thing. So so very involved in the world around me and how it all worked, and very sort of into relationships and stuff. So I was a bit of a difficult child, and I think they thought I was defiant,
Right.
where really what I was just totally immersed in the experience of life, really.
So really you were checking out and experiencing the world in a very different way from what we might normally do. I mean, a bucket of snails probably isn't really everybody's desire to have around the place, but very interesting to hear, let me tell you. Very interesting. So in what way did you ever feel different? As a child, did you ever feel that difference, or did you just go on doing what you were doing and your parents thought you might have been a bit different, but you weren't aware?
I think it started to dawn on me when in social situations with other children, it was I'd be very quiet in large groups because I'd be observing them and seeing how they interacted with each other,
Right.
and I could never quite work out why they were getting so passionately upset about something that seemed quite insignificant to me. So I didn't really have any close friends as such, but then through my childhood I did find one or two people that I clicked with, and they were very dear to me, and we could sit and have these wonderful conversations about all sorts of things, so that was good.
And were they similar to you, do you think, looking back? Were they a similar type of person to you in a sense?
I think the children that I actually really bonded with were those that had socignifant episodes or things happen to them, experience happen to them, which made them perhaps come out of the general socializing areas of life,
Yes.
and really kind of think to themselves. So they were a little bit more deeper thinking. I mean, I remember also with parents and adults growing up, you start hearing these verbal cues of like, "Oh, she's an old soul," and I found it far more fascinating talking to adults than I did to children of my own age group. Because of their experience, I think, which fascinated me and helped me, find not where I fit in, but how we all work together in
Yes.
in the world.
So there were a lot of new experiences from adult conversation, probably more so from the child conversation in that sense.
I think so, and what I learned from an early age as well is the passion that people have. When someone talks, whether it's an adult or a child, and they're talking about something that they're truly engrossed in, I discovered at an early age that you can find out so much more information about a particular subject by talking to someone who's passionate about it.
Yes.
And you can get a multidimensional view of what's going on, far more information than if you actually looked it up on Google, for example. You get, because they're talking from their passion, they're talking from the heart, and what they see is not what a normal person would see on that subject.
That's fantastic. Fantastic. Such a different childhood to me. I was just brought up and everything seemed straight and normal, and I never looked at anything like you're looking at. So that's amazing. So what was a turning point for you? You and I spoke earlier about the turning point for you in life, in career, and what created your mindset for moving forward with what you do.
I think because I found it quite difficult as a child growing up with these abilities, that I did feel quite sort of excluded from a lot of situations. And that was quite upsetting for me, the whole thing about not being accepted and not quite working out why I wasn't accepted. And then I think probably when I reached my sort of mid to late teens, I just thought, well, look, I'm actually a really good person. I know what's going on, and you get that teenage change and you want to be yourself. I didn't really see it as rebellion, but actually it was. I was lucky in the 70s because punk rock came along, and so it was a great metaphor for me to go off and shave my hair and have an enormous Mohican for many years.
Yep.
Well, not many years, but, a couple of years. And the whole premise there was, look, if you can't get past the way that I look to the person that's on the inside, then, that's fine. Because I've been used to being rejected for the person that I was. So it made no difference to me. It was just a bit of fun, really. My evil pixie was like, well, I'll look like this. I'm still the same person. I can look any way I want. So it was quite... It was quite a revelation to me that I could carry on doing and being who I was, regardless of how I looked. I could still affect people, help people, which is basically, what I'm about. Really is connecting all the dots and making a harmonious environment for everybody.
Absolutely. You told me a story the other day about the people in a factory being fired, and you're drawing inspiration from that. Can you tell me a bit more around that?
Sure. So when I sort of finished with the Mohican and shocking people idea, I realised obviously that you do have to conform a little bit in order to have your freedom. So I decided that what I really wanted to do, I came to the idea that this is what my purpose is, to bring people together and help develop them to the best people they can possibly be. So then I thought, well, what can I do with that? So I became a personnel manager. And I worked for a large organisation with 12 independent manufacturing arms to this company. And I was there. It was a huge company. They were making, well, they were quite, they had history. Mm-hmm. So they had built the display cabinets for Queen Victoria's exhibition in the Crystal Palace. Mm-hmm. They repaired the ceiling roses in the House of Commons. They were woodworkers.
Right.
And they had a fantastic apprenticeship program where they brought boys in and they trained them up, and they went out and basically worked for the organisation from indenture through to retirement. And then the industry changed, where it was no longer cabinetry, it became more bent metal and supermarket aisles, that kind of thing. And so they had to really change the way they looked at things. And they did away with the majority of the apprenticeship program. They came in, they cut the workforce because they had to change the skill set. And there were people that were just on the verge of retiring that were made redundant. And it was my job to do the outplacement interviews and things like that.
That would have been tough.
It was really hard, and I remember going to my boss, my superior at the time, and I was actually in tears having this conversation, and she looked at me and she said, "You're an idealist, aren't you?" And I thought to myself, really? Am I not allowed to be me in this world? And so I thought, well, I can't be anybody else but me. I like who I am. So I'll go out and find my career. I go and find out where I can fit in. So there were a few different, aspects of my life and career that led to where I am right now. But
can you tell the listeners how you actually decided what you were going to do by?
Well,
that's fascinating for me.
Having tried many reincarnations of what I thought was going to be a good career for me, and none of them actually working out because they were conventional occupations, I just thought I need to do something different. I don't know what to do. I need some inspiration. So I got the equivalent of the WEA Adult Education Program booklet, and I opened it up on Wednesday because that was the middle of the week.
Right.
And I closed my eyes and I put my finger down on the page and I said, whatever it is under my fingers, that's what I'm going to do. I have to admit, the first one was floristry. I have nothing. But the second attempt was reflexology, which I knew nothing about. And I thought, right, that's it. Wednesday, there's a reason to go home early from this job that I'm doing. And that just clicked. And here I am doing what I'm doing today.
Absolutely. So there you go, people. If you're really not sure what you're going to do, there's always the chance of opening up the employment section or the uni section, just popping your finger on there. Sensing people would never think to do that, Sarah. I love how you follow your intuition, and you're in the right place right now. Now, look, your partner is a sensing partner. So, what is it about your husband's sensing side that initially or still attracts you?
I think when we met, I was also at a point where I'd been in this conventional lane of trying to sort out what I was doing. I was getting there, and I needed a partner. I needed a partner in crime. I need someone to play with. And I saw Graham, and we met. There was something about him that was so grounded and yet wicked at the same time. He has a really amazing sense of humour.
Yes.
He has the ability to talk to people and get them to say things and to open up. He asks questions that nobody else would think of asking.
Right.
And I think that is what is very endearing, because you do feel that you're heard. And when he's focusing on you, you know that he has his full attention, and he'll do whatever he can to make your dreams come true, if you like.
Fantastic.
He's a dream fulfiller.
Yes. So he helps you fill your dreams. So he's pretty grounding in that sense.
Oh, totally grounding, yes.
Absolutely.
We're totally different.
Yes, absolutely. Now, everyone, Graham's a carpenter, and a magnificent carpenter, and he gets all of his details right, and he makes magnificent things. Can you just go through the example that you gave me the other day about him helping you to set something up that you were working on and helped you with the measurements?
Sure. So the job that I'm doing at the moment is a new build, and they are working from plans, from architects' plans, which is as a feeling person, I actually have to have more tangible environment around me to really feel the space. I was finding it very difficult to interpret the plans. I was sat with the architects and interior designers that do this every day of the week, so those figures and squiggles on the page mean something to them. It didn't to me. And I was finding it quite difficult, so I had to procure some equipment for these spaces. I had no spatial awareness. So Graham said, well, he said, it's quite simple. All we do is we mark it out on the floor. So he moved the dining table, got out some masking tape, marked it all out on the floor. I made some models of the size of the equipment, and I could actually step into that space and feel it.
Yeah, so, and intuitively get a feeling around what you were actually looking at.
Yeah.
So the squiggles really don't make sense until you actually get your feeling, that intuitive feeling around the whole thing. Absolutely.
That's right. then I can feel it. Once I can feel it, I can make it happen. That's not a problem. Yeah.
I think there are so many people out there that will relate to you, Sarah. It's not me, because I don't think like you, but it's a really wonderful thing, because what it does is it helps other people realize that there's nothing wrong with the way that you feel and the way that you do things and the methods that you use to get there, because your big picture is so huge. You just take in all kinds of information and you just have to bring it together. So Graham helps you bring your information together, which is wonderful. So what do you do now? Tell them. Could you tell the people what your passion is around your job, and what you're doing with all the centres that you're working in at the moment?
Right. So basically, I'll give you a little background.
Mm-hmm.
So I was working as a practitioner, and I managed to get into this particular organisation where they'd built these fantastic facilities, but they weren't in the business of wellness. So I rang the owner. I've summoned up my courage, rang the owner, and I said, "You've got all these wonderful facilities. Have you got any plans?" And they said no. And I said, "Would you like one?" And they said yes. And so I developed what we're doing today. The premise being that I really wanted a nice place to work. Being a practitioner, you often find that you're in isolation doing what you're doing. And there's a lot in this field that fascinates me, and I'm very passionate about what I do. So I wanted to be part of a team. So I basically recruited and selected people from all different areas of allied health with a passion for what they do, that wanted to actually start their own businesses, or they were retiring from a practice but wanted to carry on. And provided them a place to come that was low setup cost, that was part of a team of people that we could share our information, therefore we all learn, and then we could create multidisciplinary services for the clients. We have a cross-refer system, so if I need to maybe refer someone to a podiatrist, they can have a confidential conversation with that person about the problem with me introducing them, and then if it works, that's fine. It works into a referral appointment. If it doesn't, that's fine, but everyone has that information.
Right.
And my motto is, see one of us, see all of us.
Right.
So you come and see me, and I know a little bit about physio enough to say, why don't you go and try this? This might really help you. So it's providing the services for the organisation that created the space, that want wellness but don't know how. It's about creating a team of people that are passionate, want to learn and want to provide high quality services. And it's about creating a trusted team of people that are in the community for the client base, that they can come to with confidence and trust. And therefore everyone is connected. And then the lights go on and
beautiful.
It's all great.
Beautiful. That is a perfect description. So Sarah has made her big picture for an organisation come true. She has done an amazing job in the industry that she's in, and she works at it every day, but from a very different level, from an outlook of looking at the whole picture and seeing what needs to be done to bring it all together. So Sarah, that's fabulous. Look, thank you so much for talking to me today. Really enjoyed listening to you and talking to you. As I discussed before, Sarah works around intuitive feeling. So her thoughts are about people and caring for people and ensuring that things happen for them. So it's really wonderful to see the world through your eyes. And I'm sure there are many people out there who feel the same as you. And there are many people out there like me who'll be fascinated to know that people like you think like that. And it's really great to see how different we all are. So thanks very much, Sarah.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you for having me.
As you can see with Sarah, sharing these differences builds everybody's understanding of knowledge and communication when interacting with others. Okay, now we've outlined the differences and used a few examples along the way. The question becomes, can intuitives and sensors enjoy a blissful relationship? The answer is absolutely. We all use our sensing or intuition at different times, and sometimes both at once. We just need to make sure our preferred preference is satisfied on a regular basis. If you're a sensor in a relationship with an intuitive, make sure you have other sensors you can talk to and exchange facts and experiences with, or talk about the details of your day or week. Doing things you like, have hands-on experiences, and do what inspires you, whether it's putting together photo albums or walking with your friends. If you're an intuitive in a relationship with a sensor, make sure you have other intuitives you can talk to and theorize with. Spend time planning, exploring ideas, visualizing, and brainstorming ideas for the future, even if some of them might be unrealistic. Sensors and intuitives can help balance each other out. Intuitives can help sensors to see the bigger picture and the possibilities beyond the present. Sensors can help intuitives to see the details, application, and relevant facts in the moment. I have a sensing friend who's a teacher. He's just started dating another teacher. She's an intuitive, and he knows this because he's worked with me. They were discussing work, and she said to him, "My team teacher is so frustrating. She's so lazy." He said to her, "Why do you say this?" She said, "Well, she repeats the same lessons year in, year out." And I asked her why. And she said to me, "If it worked last year, why change?" My friend said, "And what's wrong with that?" As this is something he would do. I mean, let's face it. As they say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. She replied, "Well, wouldn't you want to do something new each time you taught the subject?" My friend responded, "No, not really." She looked at him in astonishment. Was he lazy too? He said to her, "I understand what you're saying. However, you're always running out of time to do things, and you work so much. If you sometimes repeated the successful lessons from last year again, instead of reinventing the wheel, but created new content for the other lessons, then you would have more time and still be creative." In the same conversation, he also recognized his need not to repeat all his lessons each year. And he said to her, "I would love to brainstorm with you some options for me to change my lessons up a notch." They both made these changes. She had more time, and he had more inspiration. What a wonderful example of how types can work together. I have many friends who are intuitives, and I look to them when I'm caught in the details and the mundanity of life. Times when I need direction and change, they stretch my imagination, my ideas, and my world. And even though I don't utilize all of the ideas and plans that we might discuss, I leave my friends with a greater sense of freedom, a head full of ideas, and a heart ready for change. The sensor and the intuitive are a power couple if they understand each other's personalities. Think of the problems that could be solved, the businesses that could be created, the ideas that could be brought to fruition by uniting the theory and the ideas of the intuitive with the detail and the realism of the sensor. Dynamite. Here are some ideas to create your relationship dynamite. Go out of your way to appreciate each other's strengths, know what your differences are, and compliment the other person on theirs. The intuitive can complement the sensor on their awareness, their attention to detail, problem-solving capabilities, and their down-to-earth practical nature. The sensor can praise the intuitive for their insight, imagination, out-of-the-box thinking, ingenious ideas, and their plans for the future. Remember, this is all of what initially attracted you to them. These were the things you loved when you met and fell in love. So learn to love their differences again, this time with a greater knowledge of personality type. This way, when there's a disagreement or conflict, you can emphasize with where they're coming from and avoid arguments or fights. Spend quality time with your partner and treasure every minute of it. But remember, it's also important for you to spend time with an intuitive or sensing friend who just loves to talk about the same things as you do. Love each other. Isn't that obvious? No. This is where relationships break down. Sometimes people are so caught in their personal needs and wants, they forget to take time to be interested and caring to the other person in the relationship. When you love someone, you take an interest in their ideas, their life, their plans. It doesn't matter if their stories don't apply to your sensing intuitive perceptions. You care about them, so you make their life important to you. If you can do that and your partner feels truly loved, then you can cross divorce off the list. Thank you for listening to Personalities, Parenting and Partners. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love it if you could read a rating and a review. That would help others learn and also enjoy this podcast. If you have an episode idea, please send a note to thepersonalitycoach@gmail.com. If you're interested in discovering more about you and your family's personality types, you'll find my newly launched book, Who is This Monster or Treasure in My House, on Booktopia or Amazon.